U.S. presidential hopefuls call on star power to boost their bids on the final stretch of campaigning. Vote. It doesn't matter who for, just go out there and make your voice heard. That's the message from nonprofit Asian Texans for Justice, and we're following them around to see how they're spreading it. Another wave of Chinese military planes buzzes Taiwan, part of Beijing's so-called countermeasures for Taiwan's purchase of new U.S. weapons. Plus, Japanese politics in turmoil after the ruling party faces election defeat. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. U.S. presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are hitting the campaign trail nonstop in the final days before the vote, looking to celebrities to help energize their base. Chris Gorin brings us this report.
With just over a week before the U.S. presidential election, and with polls showing the two candidates neck and neck, both are campaigning hard in swing states to motivate their supporters to cast their ballots.
9 days. 9 days left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. And we know this is going to be a tight race until the very end.
Next Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've done a terrible job. Kamala, you're fired. Get out, get out. You're fired.
In these final days, both candidates are leaning on star power at their rallies to get people excited. For Harris, that includes former President and First Lady Barack and Michelle Obama, as well as pop superstar Beyoncé. While for Trump, that has included appearances with popular podcaster Joe Rogan, as well as rally speeches from right-wing media star Tucker Carlson and the world's richest man Elon Musk, who has donated at least $132 million to Trump-allied groups. The weekend also saw controversy stemming from comments made by a comedian during a Trump rally in New York City.
There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
The Trump campaign later disavowed the remarks, but the demeaning comments about the U.S. territory saw backlash from Puerto Rican pop star Ricky Martin. Harris had the previous day made a campaign stop at a Puerto Rican restaurant in Philadelphia, and she later released a video outlining her plan for Puerto Rico, which was shared by Martin along with fellow Puerto Rican celebrities Jennifer Lopez and Bad Bunny. Meanwhile, election officials in that critical swing state sought to reassure voters that the vote counting process will be transparent and accurate, amid concerns about voter fraud through mail-in ballots.
So that's the message that we want to come out here. Everything is simple, safe, and secure. But again, we want you to use the process. We want you to feel confident to vote.
As Election Day nears, both sides are doing all they can to ramp up their appeal and energize their voters in a contest that's anything but predictable. Eason Chen and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
With millions of Americans getting ready to go to the polls, one nonprofit in Texas is making sure the Asian American community it focuses on is sufficiently represented by encouraging them to go out and vote. As part of our coverage on the U.S. elections, I followed them on a canvassing campaign in Texas' capital city, Austin.
We're looking for Mr. Hui and a Ms. Huang.
On a sweltering October Sunday in Austin, Texas, nonprofit Asian Texans for Justice goes door to door reminding people to vote in a part of the city heavily populated by Asian Americans. The group's canvas field manager, Hugh Lee, a naturalized American from China, and his canvassing partner, Taiwanese American Sabrina Shaw, are spreading a message in this upscale neighborhood. Vote. It doesn't matter for whom, just make your voice heard and participate in the democratic process.
The goal of the canvassing operation, number one, is to get as many AAPI voters to participate in the election process as possible. AAPI stands for Asian American Pacific Islanders.
For ATJ, that means educating potential voters on electoral procedures, how to get registered, and what's at stake during the upcoming elections, including down-ballot candidates and issues.
So they don't know too much about your local school board candidates. They don't know too much about your judges, your county commissioners, right? Because these are all unfamiliar names to a lot of AAPI members. So when we turn them out, we need to give them resources so that they can understand these candidates and how to vote these candidates.
The morning starts off with a quick training session with other canvassers. ATJ identifies potential AAPI voters through public records, and then they set out on their campaign. The operation isn't limited to Austin. ATJ's canvassing efforts are taking place in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, covering around 8,000 households. Mobilizing the AAPI community to vote isn't just about representation. It's also about leveraging the Asian American vote as a decisive factor in these elections.
The population of Asian Americans is only like maybe 5%, 4%, right? But in a lot of elections, which was determined by maybe 1% or 0.5%, right? 5% means a lot to a lot of candidates.
But inspiring that 5% to vote can be tough. Canvassers are often rejected, have doors closed on them, and even face hostility. But once in a while, they get someone who is receptive to their message, something both Lee and Shah say is worth the effort. The nonprofit's work also extends beyond the field, to the halls of the Texas state capitol. Shah, ATJ's development and operations manager, often works with state representatives to make sure Asian American interests are heard and represented in the legislature.
To play a little bit of defense too. So sometimes we would go to offices to meet about bills that are being proposed that wouldn't be great for our community.
Their advocacy work has won the attention and support of multiple representatives.
There's a growing AAPI community in Central Texas, and ATJ has been and continues to be a force that brings that community straight to the Texas legislature, to City Hall, to where it needs to be heard.
ATJ was established in 2021 during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, a time that saw increased hostility and violence against Asian people in the U.S. The trend was a shocking wake-up call for Shah and fellow Asian Americans.
It was like every day we were all waking up to a new headline of, an Asian elder being attacked on the street, or lots of local Asian-owned businesses being vandalized.
She and her friends planned a rally to show solidarity with the AAPI community, and the event proved a catalyst for ATJ's formation.
And that rally was attended by over 1,000 people, and from that rally we were able to raise a little over $25,000, and a lot of that money went towards starting what we call ATJ today.
In a tight election defined by fierce competition and growing polarization, ATJ doesn't concern itself too much with who wins. Rather, it's more invested in getting as many AAPI people to participate as possible so that the community can be recognized as an important electoral force. Devin Tai, Jeremy Olivier, and Leslie Liao in Austin, Texas for TaiwanPlus. Stay with TaiwanPlus for continuing coverage of the U.S. election, including more stories from Texas. Taiwan's defense ministry is reporting 22 Chinese military aircraft operating around the country since Sunday. Of those planes, 17 breached Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This airspace is not part of Taiwan's territory, but the military uses it for security purposes. The increased activity comes just a day after Beijing said it would take countermeasures in response to a $2 billion arms sale to Taipei. That U.S. arms sale includes an advanced air defense system called NASAMS. To find out what Beijing means when it says it'll take countermeasures for the arms deal, Jaime Ocon spoke to Ben Lewis. He's the co-founder of PLA Tracker, an organization that tracks military activity around Taiwan.
Now, Ben, China's foreign ministry said it was going to take countermeasures against the U.S. After it sold this air defense system to Taiwan. And on Monday morning, we see the defense ministry here in Taiwan reporting 22 Chinese planes around the country. Are these planes part of that countermeasure?
I think it's very likely, yes. I mean, I think countermeasures has kind of become a widely encompassing term for, gray zone military activity, economic coercion, sanctions on U.S. companies, individuals who are providing arms to Taiwan. So I do think this is part of it, and I think it's not going to be the last thing we see.
Now, last week, the United States announced to be selling Taiwan this $2 billion arms sale package deal with the NASAMS anti-air system, as well as radar equipment. How significant is this arms sale to Taiwan?
These weapons are very significant. I mean, NASAMS, is a powerful capability. It has been combat tested in Ukraine. It's something that Taiwan needs in terms of bolstering its air defense. One thing we've learned from Joint Sword 2024B, PLA conducts a massive air exercise. Best way to counter that is to have good air defense. And the radars you get with that are going to help Taiwan better monitor the situation. So the concern that a lot of analysts have had is that the MND does not have enough capabilities to fully capture the air and maritime domain. I think, additional radars is going to relieve that burden. And the missiles that you get with it are powerful capabilities.
And in terms of overall military activity from China, what are we seeing? Is there a clear increase in military ships and planes around Taiwan that we're seeing?
I mean, we've completely eclipsed the record of activity that was set in 2022. We had 1,738 incursions total in 2022. It's now towards the end of October. We're at 800 more incursions than that. And basically what that equates to is just the intensity of China's course of activity in the gray zone, surrounding Taiwan, in the air and on the water, is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. And most of it has happened since May, when President Lai was inaugurated. So it's a clear coercive campaign by Beijing targeting the Lai administration, attempting to weaken Taiwan's defenses through attrition. Likely it's going to continue, and I think it has very dire consequences for the region in terms of the precedent that it's setting.
That was Ben Lewis, co-founder of PLA Tracker. Taiwan's military is carrying out week-long exercises aimed at testing its combat readiness. Military vehicles and tanks were seen leaving a base in Kaohsiung in the south of the country. These drills, called the Changtai exercises, split army units into attacking and defending forces. All three service branches were set to begin exercises on Monday, but an approaching tropical storm means the Air Force's drills will be postponed by a week. Lithuania's opposition Social Democratic Party has claimed victory in parliamentary elections there. It's projected to win 52 seats in the legislature, beating the ruling party with 28 seats.
Ir rinkimų rezultatai iš tikrųjų parodė, kad Lietuvos žmonės, nesvarbu, kur jie begyventų, didmiesčiuose, miestuose, miesteliuose ar kaimuose, jie nori pokyčių. Jiems reikia visiškai kitokios valdžios, nearogantiškos, girdinčios jų problemas, ieškančios tų problemų sprendimų.
The war in Ukraine and soaring inflation were major concerns in the election. The Social Democrats are expected to form a coalition government with two other parties. The party previously said it would normalize relations with China, which soured after Taiwan opened a representative office in Lithuania in 2021. Japanese voters have stripped the long-ruling Liberal Democratic Party of its majority. This bruising defeat leaves Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru in a tough position just weeks after taking office. John Van Triest has more.
Across Japan, election workers spent Sunday counting ballots in a snap election. Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru, now barely a month in office, called the vote in the hopes of a strong mandate. But as the votes were tallied, it became clear the move had backfired. His Liberal Democratic Party, a party that's ruled Japan almost without interruption since the 1950s, lost its majority. On the streets of Tokyo, there was some surprise.
やっぱ自民党って日本でいうとなんだかんだ言ってもこうなんか占めてるイメージだったのでってちょっと思いました。
But also a recognition that scandals, most recently over ties to the Unification Church and political kickbacks, had worn out voters' patience.
裏金問題が今になっても聞いているというところが、今回敗因の大きなところではないかと。
Ishiba himself says he knew the fight would be a tough one.
こに至るまでは相当に厳しいねと思いますし、それ選挙の途中というかな、半ばぐらいからこれは相当きついねということは実感はしてましたね。
But the fight ahead may be even tougher. The Liberal Democratic Party and its junior partner, the Komeito, now have just 215 seats, 18 short of a majority. Ishiba must now either try to form a wider coalition, one in which his party will be in a weaker position, or rule as a minority government. Both options are potentially risky. But while the opposition says stripping the Liberal Democratic Party of its majority was a major goal, it's not exactly celebrating. It's made up of a range of parties of different sizes and ideologies, and they'll need to stick together. Even the biggest, the Constitutional Democratic Party, is 85 short of a majority.
まだ初めの一歩だと、これから大変だと思ってます。ですからあまりもともとあまり笑顔は出る方じゃないですけど、むしろ気が引き締まってきた緊張感があるということです。
All this adds up to an unusual period of weakness for a party used to calling the shots, and more political uncertainty ahead for the world's fourth biggest economy. Kamashu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, scientists say fungi need more recognition, but there's not much room for their own conservation category.
A pivotal election that will impact Taiwan and the world. Will it be President Harris or President Trump?
People, we are moving forward.
Make America great again.
I'm in the United States in the final stretch.
TaiwanPlus has you covered with exclusive reports from California to Texas and Washington to Florida. We'll be there on election night as America decides. Only on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Indonesia is working towards becoming a regional hub for electric vehicle production after Southeast Asia's first battery plant opened in the country. The plan is being aided by government initiatives and supported by key EV brands. But as Rosie Greninger reports, it also faces some challenges.
These robotic arms are assembling nickel-based battery cells in West Java at Indonesia's inaugural electric vehicle battery plant. The state-of-the-art factory is the first of its kind in Southeast Asia, built by Hyundai and LG as part of a joint venture investment with Indonesia. Most of these batteries will be shipped to Hyundai subsidiaries in South Korea and India, but Indonesia is looking to build on the investment to become a regional EV hub and boost the economy.
Bright outlook. It's getting bigger and bigger, the electric vehicle market. And then in Southeast Asia, this is the first and only cell manufacturing. And the Indonesian government, this factory and ecosystem is very important in Indonesia's future.
When the plant opened in July, then President Joko Widodo said such investments would make Indonesia an important player in the supply chain. Since then, the government has unveiled incentives to boost their EV market, including a luxury goods tax exemption to lure automakers to Indonesia. Electric vehicle companies can avoid paying import duties until 2025 if they commit to building facilities and producing as many cars as they import by the end of 2027. The initiative has boosted sales by 35% in the period between January and August of 2024, compared with the same period last year. It's also seen a flurry of key brands enter Indonesia's market, including China's BYD and Vietnam's VinFast. These companies say Indonesia's demographic resources and strategic maritime position make it a suitable centre for electric vehicle development.
Dari sisi production base, manufacturing. Nah, ini memberikan nilai tambah. Rasa saya pemerintah punya satu bargaining point yang baik dengan market sebesar ini. Dia akan mempersilahkan pelaku-pelaku industri tertentu untuk mengembangkan marketnya di Indonesia, namun juga harus memikirkan nilai tambah kepada negara. Nah, manufacturing base yang mereka canangkan itu sangat baik ya, dan pelaku industri yang siap itu yang bisa menjawab tantangan itu.
And being one of the biggest EV markets in Southeast Asia, the potential for products to be built in Indonesia is welcome news to residents.
Saya sendiri maupun kawan-kawan yang memang sudah mulai care terhadap lingkungan, maka merupakan pilihan bagi kami untuk ikut berpartisipasi dalam melestarikan lingkungan dengan menggunakan mobil listrik. Di sisi lain memang setelah dihitung-hitung, menggunakan mobil listrik ini memang banyak efisiensinya, banyak keuntungannya.
Indonesia faces stiff competition in the race to become a regional hub from other players, including India, Thailand, and Vietnam. The country hopes boasting the world's largest nickel reserve will set them apart. But energy analysts say Indonesia still faces a battle to become a self-functioning EV centre due to its lack of related industries, with smaller capability to process and refine nickel batteries. There are also environmental concerns, with nickel mining one of the key drivers of deforestation in Indonesia.
There has been a lot of negative coverage on Indonesia's nickel products because oftentimes there's a lot of compromises in environmental, social and governance standards. So this means that moving forward, if Indonesia wants to be relevant in the global value chain, it needs to raise the standards. Otherwise it will be left out, and keep in mind that there's a lot of other competitors as well.
These challenges the government is yet to overcome. But for now, production is booming in the country's first EV battery plant. And with demand currently growing, Indonesia is pushing forward with plans to transform into a regional hub. Alex Chen and Rosie Gredinger for TaiwanPlus.
Ferry services to Taiwan's outlying Green and Orchid Islands are canceled for the next 3 days as Tropical Storm Kongray approaches. People living on the islands rushed to get supplies while school lunches were prepared on Taiwan's main island to be sent over before the cutoff. Tropical Storm Kongray is predicted to make landfall in Taiwan later this week. Taiwan's foreign ministry says China has no right to intervene in its diplomatic relationships after Beijing called on Guatemala to end ties with Taiwan. The statement comes after China's foreign ministry said Guatemala should make the, quote, right decision and establish relations with Beijing. Taiwan's foreign minister met with Guatemalan leaders last week to mark 90 years of ties between the two countries. Ling Jialong is leading a delegation to 4 of Taiwan's diplomatic allies in Central America and the Caribbean. Scientists say that life on Earth could not exist without fungus, yet they remain one of Mother Nature's least understood life forms. But that may change if a new proposal at the UN's COP16 climate summit is adopted. Bryn Thomas explains.
Foragers are scouring the forests of the U.S. state of Washington, looking for one of nature's less understood life forms.
I'm pretty sure I've heard of it, it's called a cauliflower mushroom. Looks like a cauliflower. I heard it's pretty edible. I've never eaten it before. But I took a knee in the forest to look at something else, and I turned around and it was right there. It was very, very cool.
Take a hike anywhere and you'll find mushrooms, but ask yourself what you really know about them. And apart from being sometimes deadly, but always delicious, it probably ain't much. And you're not alone. Mycologists, scientists that study mushrooms or fungi, reckon most people don't know they're not even plants. They point out that unlike plants or flora, they don't photosynthesize their food and reproduce with spores.
We know about 98% of the vertebrates that are on the planet. We know about 85% of plants that exist on the planet. We know about 20% of invertebrates. So if we take percentages, we know relatively the least amount of fungal biodiversity.
Mycologists have only described around 150,000 species of fungi, just 6% of the at least 2.5 million thought to exist. Fungi evolved earlier than plants, creating the conditions that allowed vegetation to move from the sea to the land.
So basically, without fungi, the world would not exist. Plants would not exist. We need plants for oxygen. So the world would not exist in its current state.
Mycologists say this general ignorance among the public is a problem because of the vital role fungi play in sustaining life.
Fungi are essential for all terrestrial ecosystems. They have all kinds of ecosystem function. They associate with plant roots, and plants can't exist without them. Without fungi, plants can't grow.
Now a proposal submitted to the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity being held in Colombia, COP16, could help. Most existing conservation frameworks focus on animals and plants, so fungi only receive less direct protection. This new proposal aims to elevate fungi's status to ensure they receive the same level of attention and protection. It calls for fungi to be classified as a separate category, meaning alongside flora and fauna, we may soon have funga. The distinction will open up avenues for conservation by allowing for legislation, policies, and agreements aimed specifically at funga. And experts believe this proposal and the increased awareness it brings could impact the future of the planet.
It's so important because we may not even have flora and fauna without fungi. We really need to start working together as scientists too, and becoming more multidisciplinary in the way that we look at ecology and we look at biodiversity.
As they wait for a decision from COP16, these foragers continue their search of Washington's lush forests. Their appreciation of mushrooms reflects the growing scientific understanding of the crucial role one of nature's least understood life forms play in protecting our ecosystems.
This would be my first time actually going on a mushroom walk like this, and I've learned so much, and it was so interesting to see the different species.
Scott Huang and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, check out this footage of contestants paddling giant pumpkins at Belgium's annual pumpkin boat race. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care and see you next time.